I've been following Rupert and Francis for a while in their forms of videos and books. I came to a realization that there is something in my experience, and when I experience that, I come to feel that silence and peace. The problem is that I get abscess. And I look for that state all the time. Therefore, I turn this into an activity of the mind. What would you recommend? I think I'm maybe misreading something. Obsessed, maybe? Abscess. Oh my goodness, that's really cute. Abscess in English can mean a, maybe I've got it wrong, is when you get this pain in your tooth. Okay, obsessed. So basically, the reason that your mind's getting obsessed is because you're challenging your conditioning. You're challenging your belief systems, and so your mind is trying to hold on to something. So it's just getting obsessed with. It's just getting obsessed with thinking and this subject. Actually, what's happening underneath is you're unlodging something. You're unlodging an addiction. So you're unlocking an addiction, and your mind doesn't know how to cope. So, okay, let me start from the very beginning. I might have already said this, but because I've got a mind of a fish, I can't remember if I have or not, so I'll say it again. So basically what happens when we're very young children is about the age of 1, 2, 3, we identify with being this person inside the body. And at the same time, simultaneously, we're being conditioned, just like all animals get conditioned, but not all animals have separation, someone in relationship with it. But we begin to get conditioned at the same time that we identify. And so we get conditioned by our parents to not do bad things, to only do good things, to not scream in the house, to be quiet, to sit at the table nicely, to do your work. All these types of things we get conditioned with. And we've also got genetic makeup as well. And because we have this identification that happens as well, rather than the conditioning just happening and naturally happening, we identify that pleasure that we get from good conditioning is happiness and freedom. So we've had this separation, and we feel there's this tiny seed that something's been lost, that there's been a mistake somewhere. And then we get the conditioning to be good, and we feel pleasure from being good. And we think, it's not even a conscious thing, it's unconscious. We begin to believe that the freedom is in that pleasurable experience. So we begin to believe it's in being good and not being bad, and etc. Whatever our parents' particular conditioning was, and whatever conditioning they passed on to us. So this is the dynamic that grows. And we build up this seeker, this separate entity that's always in time and always seeking to get more and more pleasure. And it grows over time. The activity of the seeker grows over time. So it goes to school, and it's taught that it's taught that being good at school is happiness, that being friends with your classmates is happiness. And then it begins to believe that anything that's painful is taking you away from that thing that you feel like you've lost. So you build up all these addictive patterns that get more and more over time. So if you've got a pattern running in you that, so say if you're obsessed with the intellect, that got as a child a lot of confirmation that it was loved and appreciated when the intellect was shown and when it did well at school. You won't even be conscious of this. So what it does is it tries to get to always producing a good intellectual story and always telling itself an intellectual story and always working things out. And this just becomes the habit. Even when there's nothing to work out, it does this. And then it has this other side that it's trying to avoid, and that's not being intelligent, not understanding, not having worked things out. So it tries to avoid that sensation, that painful sensation of feeling lost, of feeling like it doesn't understand, and it tries to get to the feeling of understanding and knowledge. So I'm not saying this is you, I'm just giving you an example. And what you need to do, rather than trying to work more things out and trying to understand in time more, non-duality, you need to go to that feeling and understand and put the attention in those two feelings. So in the feeling when you get pleasure from working things out, and in the feeling of when you get pain from feeling lost and like you haven't worked things out. And this is like the reverse story. So the seeker is always trying to maintain the intellect and maintain thinking, and this is going back to the feelings that are underneath that functioning, going backwards. Because the working out of non-duality is just adding more to that addictive pattern. So this is now coming back to feeling the addictive patterns of the seeker in the body. And eventually what will begin to happen is there will be surrendering into the feelings. There will be, the person will stop living in the effect of being separate and the attempt to stay separate. It will begin to surrender into those pleasurable and painful feelings a bit more. And in that, there can be a revealing of non-duality. Well, you're really strongly seeking, everything's focused on the seeking. The more and more honest you become on the human level, there can be the seeing that who you are is beyond that conditioning, and that you don't actually find home by working anything out and not feeling lost. They are simply human feelings that appear and come and go in the body, and that there's not, the getting rid of them is not the aim, or is not the goal. The goal is seeing you are that which is experiencing that person and experiencing those feelings. But it seems like over many years of teaching now, it seems like there has to be that activity of going beyond the surface seeking levels a bit to some extent and coming back to the center. And in the center is freedom. When I say center, I mean not going in the timeline, not going in past and future. In the center of feelings is that boundless freedom. Like, so the I amness is in the center of everything. The consciousness is in the center of everything. We think of consciousness as once removed, but it's looking, it's everywhere. It's in it. Okay. So, that's that. You know, and there's always going to be conditioning that all of us are unconscious of, and deeper understanding of the conditioning, but it's coming back to the center rather than always running away in the intellect and in the mind and in stories. Stories won't free you. Stories are produced to make you more comfortable with the feelings you're feeling. And then you go right into the middle of the feelings, and then there is this boundless freedom that's endless. That's who you are. But you know, just as a message to all of humanity, I do believe that all of us should become more conscious of our conditioning, because the human animal can be mean when it's really unconscious of its conditioning. It can do mean things. And all of us can become more conscious of our conditioning. I'm not trying to sound on my high horse here, because I'm including myself in that. And conscious of other people, because also if you become more conscious of your own and other people, then you'll also stop putting yourself in a victim position as well. So say if you feel victimed by somebody's behavior. And she's going to slip it in. You just watch how many people disappear when I slip this in. One thing that everyone can become more conscious of is the abuse of animals in our society and the meat and dairy industry. Okay. I'm not so much into the environment, I'm more into the animals, although I am into the environment to the extent. Just besides non-duality, that's in the relative plan. So if you're going to use animal products, make sure you're using animal products that aren't from animals that have really suffered. It's terrible what we do to animals in our society. Oh my goodness. You know, in 100 years, 200 years time, if humans are still alive, they're going to look back at our society and be disgusted about what we're doing to animals. I'm not saying there's other issues, not other issues in this society that are, but this is one that we're doing in such huge amounts. Like, people are eating meat sometimes 2-3 times a day for meals. Okay, enough, Lisa. I'm not saying don't eat animal products, I'm just saying be aware of where it's coming from.